Should a man be punished to death for a crime or live and face the consequences? You see this in the news every day and you think nothing of it. But the use of the death penalty is a debate that is still ongoing to this very day, as there are individuals questioning its use to either be effective or barbaric to the criminal in question. To get a better sense of what I'm talking about, according to Amber Woodgary, author of the periodical Debating the Death Penalty, around 68% of American adults in 2012 were in support of the death penalty, but since, that number has drastically decreased. Americans now more than ever are questioning the validity of the death penalty's use, and they should, as it has become a punishment far too cruel and unnecessary for the individuals at fault. Today, I'd like to go over some of the reasons as to why we should abolish the death penalty, by first discussing how it violates human rights, then move on to how it doesn't even deter crime, and finally discuss some common objections people have against the abolition of the death penalty, such as how it provides justice through punishment and also allows for the incapacitation of the criminal in question. To get started, let's talk about how the death penalty violates basic human rights. Now, the main method of which the death penalty is carried out, which is lethal injection, is often the most unreliable and also the most harmful. This often occurs due to wrongly administered dosages of the lethal injection drug to participants, and this often causes sensations of suffocation, drowning, and also respiratory failure and symptoms and injuries. And oftentimes, due to the lack of care and consideration of the implementation of the drug, many individuals are forced to suffer as a result, when in reality, the process of the death penalty should be quick and painless. But in actuality, they're strapped into a gurney, suffering and feeling these effects while administered the drug. Now, for instance, according to Julia Edens, author of Warning, Use May Result in Cruel and Unusual Punishments, quote, despite recorded instances of extreme pain and suffering, the FDA does not regulate lethal injection drugs for safety and effectiveness, as it is outside their jurisdiction. This demonstrates the FDA's lack of consideration and lack of care when administering the drug, and oftentimes leading to unnecessarily bodily harming of the participants of the drug. And is a clear violation of human rights, as individuals are suffering without cause and are suffering unnecessarily due to the lack of care of the lethal injection drug. Also, along with violating human rights, the death penalty also doesn't even deter crime. Although being its primary purpose, the death penalty has shown little to no progress in the deterrence of crime. And since its creation, evidence has concluded that states with the death penalty had shown little to no evidence of it actually preventing crime from occurring. And actually, crime has risen in states with the death penalty, as we will showcase right now. According to the academic journal, Does the Death Penalty Deter? Quote, after reanalyzing the data used in the most prominent statistics, researchers concluded that states with the death penalty demonstrated no clear signs of a deterrent effect. Also in the same study, quote, within the US, homicide rates in 6 different states with no death penalty between 1960 and 2000 had similar rates to those that didn't. This demonstrates the insufficient job the death penalty has at preventing crime, and ultimately the lack of effort and resources the U.S. is having implementing the system when it can't even achieve its primary function, which is deterring crime. It's actually making crime worse and spreading in states that it actually has it localized, which is another reason as to why the death penalty should be abolished. Now that we've talked about some of the reasons as to why it should be abolished, let's discuss some common objections people have against the abolition of the death penalty. This is how it provides justice through punishment. Many people argue that by keeping the death penalty in place, victims of said criminals that are undergoing the death penalty feel a sense of justice, as the individuals committing the crime can no longer commit the crime and harm the victims ever again. Since the criminals committed a capital punishment, it's only fair it's only fair that they receive a capital punishment, which is what many believe to be an eye for an eye. And as such, victims somehow feel a sense of closure, as now they can no longer be harmed by this dangerous individual since the execution method kills them off. Louis P. Pagman, author of The Death Penalty, For and Against, addressed in regards to this, quote, the criminal in murdering the innocent within has made himself vulnerable to the state's authority to use the sword in behalf of justice and self-defense. Forfeiture gives the moral and legal authority the right to inflict the criminal with a punishment, such as a capital punishment. Hatchman brings the idea of retribution, which is what many individuals hope to feel when keeping this death penalty in place, as by allowing for this individual to be executed, they can no longer harm the victims, and as such, is why many people allow for the death penalty to continue, as it allows for the cycle of justice to occur over and over again. While also allowing for justice through punishment, the death penalty, as another common objection, the death penalty also allows for the incapacitation of the criminals. Now, by incapacitation, I refer to the acts of criminal, the ways governments and prevent criminals from ever committing crimes ever again. Now, people argue that the death penalty incapacitates criminals, as by killing them off, they can no longer allow for future crimes to occur, and as such, acts as a protection barrier against society and allows for future crimes to be prevented from an individual being sent to execution. According to Mara MacLeod, author of The Death Penalty as Incapacitation, quote, hundreds of executions have been premised on the need to protect society from dangerous offenders. 2 states require findings of future dangerousness for any death sentence, and over a dozen states treat it as an aggravating factor that turns murder into capital crime. This demonstrates that by executing individuals through the death penalty, this benefits society by ensuring prevention of crime from ever occurring again. And by eliminating these criminals from society, it allows for less crime to occur and deters crime ultimately by killing off criminals through the death sentence, and allows for the success of the death penalty, as future crimes can no longer be committed. To summarize, I would like to conclude what we went over today by summarizing some of the main points. Today with you all, we covered reasons as to why the death sentence should be abolished, through which it violates basic human rights and it also deters crime. But we also talked about some common objections, such as how it allows for justice through punishment and also the incapacitation of individuals. I hope today you learned some awareness as to the flaws and imperfections of the death penalty, and as such, you can petition to remove this death penalty from ever existing in our jails ever again. And by grouping up together, by writing petitions, we can make Congress aware of the flaws, and as such, can petition for it to be abolished. And Congress, through these petitions, can abolish the trend completely. And by working together, we can allow this effort to occur. As Albert Einstein once said, peace cannot be kept by force. It can only be achieved by understanding. Thank you.